Jim, what brings you to the conference today?
Well, it's a very exciting topic, and I was invited by Mei-Lin Fong, who I've known for quite some time. But the Franchise for Humanity is about, global humankind. And I work internationally anyway, and I think that we live in a planet now that needs the whole world to work together.
Now, I believe you're involved with some organization where American and Chinese scientists collaborate together for mutual benefit.
Yeah, actually two different organizations in that vein. One of them is the U.S.-China Green Energy Council. So we work with Chinese companies and agencies and nonprofits to promote green energy, sustainable development. And my job within that organization, aside from coordinating the publishing, is green buildings and eco-cities.
Now, if the goal is to have greater collaboration and cooperation, what's blocking that? Because it is not proceeding as fast as some people might like.
Absolutely, it's not. And the biggest thing actually is people in silos. You would think it would be the difference between U.S. and China's cultures and competition between the two countries, but actually it's people, the engineers, that can't talk to each other because they just don't know how.
I would think engineers, if anybody, would have an easier time because engineering is pretty cut and dry. It's emotionless, it's dry, it's facts and figures.
Well, actually, you would think that, right, based on science. But what Stanford has actually discovered, that because they had different engineering schools for mechanical engineers and architects and so on and so forth, that they were not collaborating either. So they created a new campus on Stanford campus where they have all the different engineering schools in one quad. And part of their graduation requirement is that they collaborate on projects with people in the other fields. So that's a recognition of the problem and a beginning to the solution.
Now, is that collaboration when you're forced to collaborate, or does it develop naturally and organically? Because sometimes people might not want to collaborate because then they might feel they're losing control of their own project. Somebody else might tell them how to manage their own work.
In academic situation, it's easier than in business because actually, to get the project done and get the maximum result, you need to have the experts in the different fields work together and find out if they're getting in each other's way. So actually one might create problems for the other, whereas they would talk about it first and then work on it together throughout the process. They can create better results for both or all.
Does collaboration require that everybody shares the same objective?
Yes. Overall objective, but then within it they have their sub-objectives.
Yeah. Because if American scientists are collaborating with Chinese scientists, there might be different objectives because each one is working in the national interests of its own country and the countries are rivals.
Yeah, that comes up, but actually, there was a big hullabaloo about that a couple of years ago. I mean, it continually goes on. They're talking about competition with China, but after the people in Congress were arguing about competition, Henry Kissinger came up with an article in the New York Times, and he said, wait a minute, do you realize that economically we are one family, like we're married? We export more to China than anywhere else in the world, and they export more to us. And so we really, if we fight with each other, we're actually going to ruin each other's economy and break up the family.
Now, I understand that you gave a talk at the conference today. What was your talk all about?
My talk was about collaboration for sustainable development. And the Chinese, of course, recognize the need to develop a cleaner, greener economy because they're choking to death on their pollution. Right? We have the luxury of so much space for so few people, so we don't see the immediate pollution effects of growing unsustainably. But we see it in terms of energy issues, and one of the big ones, actually, we don't see it too often unless it happens in our immediate area, but like pollution, waste management, we're actually not only the other natural resources like metals and so on, but even our water, right? If we're running out of water, we really don't need to, because we have much more water than we need, but we just don't use it efficiently.
Is there any particular skill set necessary for effective collaboration? Because the concept of collaboration is obviously nothing new.
Right. The skill set is being able to see the big picture. You have to see beyond your immediate, what's just right in front of you, and to see unintended consequences, or to anticipate unintended consequences, and therefore work with other people that might see something you don't see. Right. And that happens all the time. Right?
Can different people see a different big picture? You know, abstract the view of the world in a totally different way.
Of course. So the key then is to talk about it. To say, okay, what do you see, and what do I see? And what's really interesting, I mentioned this downstairs, my wife and I are from different cultures, so she's Chinese and I'm American-born, Scottish descent. And so we see the world differently. She grew up in China, I grew up here, or in New York, which is different from California. But our marriage actually is much more interesting because we recognize that we see the world differently and we can exchange different perspectives. And she went to psychology school and she just became a marriage, family, child counselor. She found out that there are more problems in marriages among people that come from the same town than from people that are married interculturally or across internationally, because they don't realize, they think that they should think the same and they really don't, because people grow up in different families.
Would you say that there is a particular worldview developing out of this conference?
Yeah.
What would that worldview look like?
Franchise for humanity. So this is, we're all in this together. We've got to save the human race. I mean, nature will take care of itself if we do too much damage, but you know, human race won't get to enjoy it unless we recognize that we're all in it together, and we have to look at, okay, what's good for all of us, and how what we do impacts what other people do.
Are there trade-offs in that? In order to do what's right for the world, we might have to give up something for ourselves that we really like and really don't want to give up.
Yeah.
For example, a luxurious lifestyle, if you're not allowed to consume as much energy as you could previously.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we sell people?
One of the things that we might have to give up is drinking too much soda, because there are 6 tablespoons of sugar in every soda, right? And we might enjoy it for the short term, but then, you know, it's going to kick us later. So it's really about understanding what really makes us happy. And one of the big problems, of course, is money. We focus so much on money that a lot of people would rather be unhappy and miserable as long as they have a lot of money. And we talked today about the gross happiness index in Burma, right, which is, what's more important, having a lot of money but being unhappy, or being happy and having just enough money? Right.
Well, that raises an interesting question about happiness. I mean, how do you define it? You know, different things might make different people happy. Some people are happiest when they have a lot of money, and some people are happy when they...
There aren't very many people that are real happy if they have a lot of money. Because then, you know, as Robert Frost observed in his speech at John Kennedy's inauguration, having a few things is nice, but having too many things is actually, they own you.
But is there some universal standard of happiness, or does everyone have their own? Like, some people find happiness in their work, and others find it in their leisure activities, and some people find it through other people and relationships, and others find it through producing something alone, like writing books alone.
Well, the people who have studied this throughout history have observed that, I mean, what Aristotle pointed out, we are social beings. If we're doing things all alone, it's not as good, it's not as happy as doing things together with others.
Okay.
And sometimes we get misled about that, but
We're just about out of time. Do you have any
Yeah.
last-minute comments that you'd like to make before we stop? The floor is yours. We have our audience. So any wisdom that you would care to impart, anything you think the world would benefit from knowing, feel free.
Okay, well, I think that, I mean, basically for me, what I see and what we're focusing on at this conference is a franchise for humanity, is that if we exchange opinions and observations and compare notes with other people, we can figure out better ways for all of us. And if we don't exchange and look at things through the lenses of others, then we don't learn new stuff, right? And we get stuck in our old belief systems. So as Confucius observed, you know, among others, right, 活到老学到老. If you may live to be very old and you study until you're very old, you still don't know 80% of what there is to know. 80% is probably more like 90%. 90% you don't know, right? At least. And we're still discovering like new understanding of the universe and how it works and the dark matter and all of that, right? And if we don't remain open to learning new things, we enjoy life less, and we actually don't find out what's going to harm us in the long run.
Okay, very good.
Right.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. It was a great conversation.
This is the last-